Close your eyes and let the modern world fade away. We are traveling back to the very beginning, to a time before time had a name, before the sun, the moon, or the stars. Before the earth itself, there was only Ginnungagap, a yawning silent chasm of pure nothingness. An emptiness so profound it was not even dark, for darkness is a thing. This was the void from which all things would one day spring. At the northernmost edge of this nothingness lay Niflheim, a realm of eternal frost, of grinding glaciers and rivers of ice that never saw light. And at the southern edge, a world away, burned Muspelheim, a land of unending fire, with rivers of molten rock and a sky choked with embers. For eons, these two opposing forces existed in perfect, silent balance. But slowly, as the poetic Edda tells us, the temper of the void began to change. The searing winds from the south began to drift north, and the bitter cold from the north began to seep south. Where these two elemental forces finally met, at the very heart of Ginnungagap, a miracle began. The fire's breath kissed the ice, and the ice in turn wept droplets of meltwater into the abyss. This slow, cosmic dance of opposites was the first sign of life stirring in the universe. From this meeting of fire and ice, where the dripping rime met the warmth, the first being came into existence. He was not a god, but a giant Ymir, the progenitor of all frost giants. He formed from the coalescing elements. A colossal, slumbering figure of ice and hoarfrost, his breath a blizzard, his size immeasurable. He was the embodiment of that primal chaos, asleep in the newborn universe. And as Ymir slept, another form took shape from the melting ice. This was Audumla, a great and gentle cow. She was the cosmic nourisher, whose milk flowed in 4 great rivers, sustaining the giant Ymir. And so the first days passed, the giant sleeping, the cow providing. But Audumla, too, needed sustenance. She turned her attention to the icy cliffs of Niflheim and began to lick the salty, life-giving ice. For a full day she licked, and by evening a man's hair had been freed from the frost. She licked a second day, and a head emerged. On the third day, she licked until the entire figure was released from his icy prison. This was Buri, the first of the gods, handsome and powerful, who would become the grandfather of Odin. Meanwhile, from the body of the sleeping Ymir, life also sprang forth in a more direct and perhaps more unsettling way. As he rested, the warmth of the emerging world caused him to sweat. From the sweat under his left arm, a male and female giant were born, and from his legs, another son was born, thus spawning the entire race of the frost giants, the Jötnar. The world was no longer empty. It was now a stage shared by 2 primal families, the gods, born of careful, deliberate creation, and the giants, born of chaotic, elemental force. This set the stage for the conflict that would define the Norse cosmos, a tension between order and chaos that began even before the world itself was made. This new world, teeming with giants and the first gods, could not remain a formless place for long. The tension between order and chaos demanded a resolution. Buri had a son named Bor, who married a giantess named Besla. From their union came 3 brothers who would change everything: Odin, Vili, and Ve. They were the first of the Aesir, the tribe of gods associated with power and governance, and they looked upon the sprawling, chaotic race of giants born from Ymir's body and saw a threat to any future order. The giants multiplied quickly, their numbers vast, their nature wild and untamed. The 3 brothers knew that for a stable world to be born, the age of the primordial giant must end. So they made a fateful decision. They rose up against Ymir, the first being. The conflict was colossal and terrible, a struggle for the very soul of creation. With their strength and their will, Odin and his brothers fought the ancient giant. When Ymir fell, his death was a cataclysm. The blood that poured from his wounds was so immense it became a flood, drowning all but 2 of the frost giants, who escaped to a distant land that would become Jotunheim. But from this violent end came a beautiful and profound beginning. The brothers did not discard the giant's body. Instead, they saw it as the ultimate raw material. They dragged his colossal form into the center of Ginnungagap and began to craft the world from his remains. From Ymir's flesh, they fashioned the earth, the rich soil, the rolling hills, the vast continents. His unbroken bones became the mountains and the great cliffs that define the landscape. They took his blood, and all the seas and lakes of the world were formed. His skull they set high above, creating the dome of the sky, and they placed sparks from Muspelheim within it to become the sun, the moon, and the stars. Even his brain was thrown into the sky, becoming the clouds that drift overhead. They named this new world Midgard, the Middle Enclosure, a fortress of earth built from the body of a giant, designed to be a safe home, protected from the remaining giants who dwelled beyond its borders. Yet, the work of creation was not finished. The world was beautiful, but it was empty of the ones who would appreciate it. Walking along the shore of this new world, Odin, Vili, and Ve found 2 tree trunks, an ash and an elm washed up by the sea. They were just wood, lifeless and still. But the gods saw potential. Odin breathed into them the gift of spirit and life. Vili gave them intelligence and the capacity for movement. Ve bestowed upon them the senses sight, to see the sky he had made, hearing to listen to the waves, and speech to name the world around them. The man they named Ask, from the ash tree, and the woman they named Embla, from the elm. They were the first humans, and Midgard was given to them as their home. And to bind this new cosmos together, a great ash tree began to grow, its roots delving into the deepest realms of existence. This was Yggdrasil, the world tree. Its 3 great roots extended down to a spring of wisdom, to the well of fate, and into the misty realm of Niflheim. Its branches reached high above Asgard, the realm of the gods, which Odin and his brothers were now building as their own fortified home. A shimmering bridge, the Bifrost, connected Asgard to the other worlds, a rainbow path watched over by the vigilant god, Heimdall. The universe was no longer a void with 2 opposing realms. It was now a cosmos of 9 worlds, all connected by the limbs and roots of the great tree. And so, from the silent, empty chasm of Ginnungagap, a universe of stunning complexity had emerged. What began as a meeting of elemental opposites, fire and ice, culminated in a world filled with life, purpose, and connection. The Norse cosmos was complete, a delicate balance of order carved from chaos, of gods, giants, elves, dwarves, and humanity, all existing under the watchful branches of Yggdrasil. This was how the Vikings saw the world, not as a place that simply was, but as a story that began with a great and terrible sacrifice, a story in which everything around us is woven from the very fabric of a primordial being. It is a tale that reminds us of the deep, ancient connections between all things. The door to the past is always open here at Myths by Candlelight. If you wish to walk deeper into these ancient stories, subscribe to the channel for our next journey.